Hey everybody, my name is Brian.
And I'm Corinne. We're a medical couple raising our daughter Victory, who's medically complex but full of life and love.
Around here, our life means medicine, midnight feedings, marathon days,
and miracles wrapped in messy grace.
We're talking about having faith in the trenches, loving each other through the chaos,
and staying connected to each other and to Jesus, even when life looks nothing like we planned.
So if you're walking a hard road and looking for hope, welcome to Living with Victory. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Living with Victory. How's everybody doing? We are, so this is going to be a part 2 to our last episode, which was about Victory's tracheostomy, and that episode was dedicated to Victory's friend Mia, who just underwent a tracheostomy procedure. And we kind of forgot a couple of things, so this is a part 2 to that episode. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, listen to that one first before this one, and then listen to this one, because this one is a part 2, a continuation to that one.
Yeah, and it probably is good that we did it in parts, because it would have been way too long if we did remember everything. It would have been too long. So thanks for joining us again, and hopefully this will be something that is beneficial for you. And again, share and like and
subscribe
and do all the things, and like tell your friends about it, especially if like they're going through a medical situation that they can
absolutely
like benefit from this. Just definitely share.
The more people that hear this, the better. The more people that see this and share it, the better, because we really want to be a resource to everybody who needs one. And especially like for me, this really hits home, because I think I've mentioned this before, but for me personally, there aren't a lot of resources and there's not a lot of support for dads, for medical fathers, whether they're single, married, whatever. There's not a lot of support for them. So I want to be that support to all of you dads who feel like they're alone or don't have any. But I also want us to be a support for the families that need it as well. And so if you're a medical dad, whether you're single, married, in a relationship, whatever the case may be, if you need somebody to talk to, please reach out. You can find me on Facebook. You can private message me. You can find my personal page and comment on any of my posts, and I'll reach out to you. Whatever, we have our email listed. You can reach out to us that way as well. So please, we want to be a resource to everyone who needs one. So,
and
don't be shy.
Yeah, and you might see us looking down, because we did write a few things so we don't forget it this time. So that's what we're doing. We just have a couple of things that we don't want to forget, and they're mainly revolve around tips and tricks, and just things that we wanted to share about. And number one most important thing is for you guys all to know that we're not medical professionals, so we are not giving medical advice, but we're just sharing our experience, because we've been doing it for 6 years, and what might be good and work for Victory in our experience may not work for you guys, but we just wanted to we figured we'd share.
And I'm going to say this a lot, so forgive me for repeating myself, but I just want to make it also very clear that doctors don't know everything. And doctors definitely do not have the final say or the authority to do things. And doctors are the smartest, stupidest people in the world.
They can be.
They can be, yes. Not all of them, but some of them can be. And so you take what they say with a grain of salt, and don't take it as law, because it's not. So.
And that's coming from, again, without getting too far into it, because we want to get to our tips and tricks, but that's coming from us knowing that people have said to us that Victory would not smile, would not know us, would not survive the first year. She would be a vegetable.
They said she wouldn't even make it to her first birthday. So.
Many people, that has been said to them as well. And so they said, okay, well, I'm going to abort my child.
Out of
or,
ignorance.
Yeah, or I'm going to just give comfort care because they're not going to live anyway. I don't want to make them suffer by helping them, just for the sake of for them to die. And that's not true. You don't know. No one knows. And so that's why we advocate for, and we have chosen for Victory, and we really do encourage everyone to give your child the best chance that they have, do all the full interventions, and if they pass away, then that's awful and horrible, but at least you gave them a chance to try to survive, rather than just say, I'm not even gonna bother with trying. And I know it's not really that's not how you come across by saying that. It is because of love. You you really love this baby and you don't want them to suffer. So I can see that too. So I'm not saying that it's just like, oh, I'm not going to bother with you. But for us, we really feel like it's important to give them everything medically necessary to help them to have a chance. And if they don't make it, then that's...
And you can't go by statistics. And a lot of this is repetitive because we say this almost every episode, I think. But and that's what a lot of the doctors go by. And you can't go by statistics. You can't go by Google. You can't go by researching because they're diluted. And they're fake. They don't show...
Skewed.
Skewed, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I always say the wrong words, so
okay.
She always has to correct me. That's why we do this together.
I know what you're getting at. So I see
yeah,
it.
So don't always go by what they say or what you see on the internet or Facebook or what the statistics show, because they're not accurate. They're not factual. Our experiences are. And so that's why we want to share them.
Yeah. So just going back on to the tips and tricks, so one of the main things that we forgot that you were going to, I feel like, talk about more was the fact that right after the trach surgery, they require, at least what Boston Children's did, and I believe it was for the best, to sedate and then paralyze the child for 7 days.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of the most important things that we totally skipped over. So we apologize, but we're addressing it now. And one of the things that they told us, like she said, is the recovery for Victory was a week, but she was that whole week for an entire 7 days. She was completely sedated, completely temporary paralyzed, to the point where she could not and would not move, and it's done on purpose. And the reason why they do that is because your neck isn't used to having a hole there. And so when they make the hole, when they put the hole in the stoma, or they put the trach in the stoma, they cannot afford to jeopardize the healing process of the trach being in the stoma, because otherwise, I don't know what they would do if it didn't heal. Well, she wouldn't be able to use the trach, but
we know because it happened with the G-tube. So, but we won't go into that. But basically, it needs to be healed and just have a good track for the trach to go into, because if it doesn't, it's gonna get bigger and bigger, and it won't. Yeah,
because the trach itself, one of the things that I pictured in the very beginning was it just goes into the throat, it just stops there, but it actually doesn't. It goes all the way down. Oh, there it is. There you go.
We have one that we sanitized and everything, but then we'll re-sanitize it again.
We have to save some just in case our DME company doesn't have any to send us, or they're on back order. So when we do trach changes, we'll get into that a little bit later too. But when we do trach changes, we hold on to some of the old ones, sterilize them, boil them in water, do all the things necessary to make sure that they're safe to reuse for the next time if we need to. Yeah, so this is the part that's actually in her trachea, which is why it's called a trach. And this is the part that... So for the people that are listening, obviously you can't see, but true. It's like the length of my thumb to my index finger, right? This is my index finger. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could make it wider or shorter,
Well,
so I don't know.
It's like
I can't measure.
a U shape. Like if you hold your thumb straight up and your index finger
like a U.
straight up like a U, that's about the length of it in your throat.
And it is different though for everybody because everyone has a different size. Like a baby might not have as long of a one, and this one is a plus. So Victory's is longer.
Yeah,
So,
she's grown in size, trach size, because when she first got one, it was a 3.5, and she moved to a 4.0, then to a 4.5 plus, which is where she's at now.
She might have actually started at a 3, because I think she was a 3, and then went to 3.0. And that the numbers that we're saying, the 3, 3.0, all that is I believe it's like the circumference of it. It's not the length. The length says it right here, 48. So this is the trach. We can talk more about all these things later, but I just figured since we were talking about that.
So if that whole 7 days, like if she were to move her neck or her head or her shoulders, anything in that sort of way, it would jeopardize the healing process of the trach, and the hole would actually close or close around the trach, which would not be good, because your skin, like I said, your neck isn't used to having a hole there. That's not natural. It's not normal. So the natural thing for it to do is to close on its own. But for her, while she's temporarily paralyzed and sedated for the whole entire 7 days, it heals around the tracheostomy. And for that whole 7 days, her team of doctors and her surgeon and everybody, they all told us, they tell everybody who goes through this, that for the next 7 days, you might as well go out and do everything that you could not do for the last 3 or 4 months that we've been there, because she was there for 6 months, day and night, and we were there by her bedside 6 months, day and night. And up until that point, I think it was like 3 or 4 months of us being there, and we were there day and night every single day. And they were like, listen, leave, go out, do stuff together, go places together, do everything that you haven't been able to do since you've been here, because she's going to be paralyzed, she's going to be sedated, she's not going to move, she's not going to do anything. And we just, we couldn't just leave her there like that, even though she was in that temporary paralysis. We wanted her to know that we were there with her. So, I would sing over her, I would pray over her, I would, rub her hand, rub her arm, hold her hand, rub her head, like all these things to let her know, like, we're still there, we're not leaving her. And so we stayed there for the whole week that she was like that. And every single day we waited and waited until she woke up. And it was the longest week of my life, honestly, because I couldn't wait until she woke up. There's always that fear in the back of your mind. What if she doesn't wake up? Or like, what if she wakes up and it's not the same, and or she's not the same? But everything worked out. Thank God everything worked out the way that they said it would. And like I said, it was the best decision we ever made. So just be prepared for that period of recovery. As soon as she's done with the procedure and they bring her back up, or your child back up, that first 7 days is going to be long, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough. But one of the things, and I said this in the last episode, one of the things that gave me peace was that she looked so much better. She looked so much healthier. She looked so much more peaceful. She was breathing easier. She was much more comfortable. She wasn't having a hard time maintaining her oxygen, or her, her respiratory rate, her heart rate was was nice and low and calm, and she was safe, and she looked like a completely new person, like a new Victory, and a better Victory, and a healed Victory because of what we knew this trach was going to do for her. So that's how that first week went, right?
Yeah.
You want to add anything to that? While I take a sip of my nice hot LMNT hydrate electrolytes that will warm me up during this New England freezing cold winter after we just got a 24-inch snowstorm in 24 hours, and now we're gonna go and deal with -6 degrees wind chill for the weekend.
And no, he doesn't get anything from saying what he's drinking, so you don't have any affiliates with him.
No, I don't.
I think you pretty much covered it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would just say to like, it's kind of hard. It is hard, but you know, if you don't have anyone with you, like we had each other, but if you were by yourself or something, bring a book and
reach out to us.
Yeah, you
even
can reach out and say
like,
hi,
hey, I'm going through this right now. Can you guys pray for me? Or, you know, hey, you know, my son or my daughter just came back from having a tracheostomy. She's starting her recovery. Like, can you guys help? Or can you guys, you know, be there for us? Like, please reach out.
Yeah, I mean, we might, depending on where you live and everything, and even if you live right next to us, we probably couldn't go there because we have Victory.
No, not physically go there,
right.
But just like be there
but we
for
can,
them.
Yeah,
support,
talk,
encourage, pray,
definitely,
listen,
like,
that kind of thing.
Listen,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was about it. But for our next thing that we wanted to make sure that and some of these things can be like really quick and like just 1 or 2 sentences, and then others might be a little bit longer. But one of the things that we always were conscious of was her trach positioning and the ventilator. So hospital ventilators especially, but even at home ventilators, because there's 2 different types. But hospital ventilators tend to be a little bit more heavy with all the tubing and everything. But we've always been very conscious of if it was pulling. So like if you have the trach here and the vent here, and then the vent is like over here, and you position the child, we'll just say Victory because it's easier to say, Victory over like this, it's pulling on the stoma and pulling on her trach area, and that also can distort, even though it's healed. Constant pressure or constant
rubbing,
pulling can irritate, but also distort the stoma. Like you want the stoma to be nice and round and have a clear track to go have your trach go in, because if it's not, then it's going to be wonky trying to get it in, and it won't be safe. So we've always been really careful to make sure the trach is centered, and then move the ventilator tubing over so that it is centered as well.
Especially me, I get really frustrated because almost every single time we've been inpatient, I just don't understand how some RTs, respiratory therapists, don't realize this or don't know this. And when they come in, you know, because they have certain rules and regulations where like we can take Victory off the vent, but we can't put her back on the vent. So there are times where when we take her off the vent, you know, and she's ready to go back on the vent, we have to wait for the RT to come to hook her back up to the ventilator, even though we know how to do it. We've been doing it for the last 6 years. However, whenever they do, they always do it in a way where it always pulls to the side. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, and then every single time I have to reposition it, and I actually take it off myself to do that because I'm not really supposed to, but you know, they never know unless they listen to this, then they will know. But I reposition it to make sure it's not pulling, not dragging, not looping all the way to the ground, because people can walk and trip all over it and pull it out accidentally. So positioning of the tubing, vent tubing is very critical.
Yeah, and they do usually have, and if they don't have it, you want to ask for
Velcro clips.
Yeah, like Velcro clips that you can clip to the child so that it's not, so if it does pull, it's not pulling the trach, it's more pulling the shirt or something like that.
Because like you want the vent tubing and the trach to be flush against her neck. Like, you don't want it to be pulled out, or lifting to the point where you can actually see the stoma.
Yeah, that means it's being pulled.
Yeah, because if you can see the stoma and the hole in his or her neck, then it's pulling, and you don't want that.
Right. And not to mention, you won't get a good seal of air. It'll be escaping out. Like when you, when the vent is connected to this, air is being pushed through that hole and comes out here. But if it comes out here and not going into her lungs, it would be going into her lungs. But if there's a hole here, it's really hard to explain, then the air will come out and go right back out. So she's not getting it in her lungs. It's just going in and out. So, yeah, I was going to say one more thing.
Yeah, and another thing is, if it's pulling, that means it's putting a lot of pressure on the trach ties itself that's holding the trach in place. And so if the tubing is pulling the trach, then the trach is in turn pulling the trach ties. And then that kind of puts the safety of the trach ties that are holding the trach in danger, and then they could snap off, or they could come apart, or they could unvelcro somehow, and then the trach will completely come out altogether, and that's no good.
Yeah, and they are very...
and that's when you would have to do an emergency trach change.
Yeah, I mean, they are very strong, but you also don't want to, like, test it. But one thing I wanted to say that I remembered is that certain trachs are different. So this one is called a flex stent because it can wiggle. But just because it can wiggle doesn't mean you want to, like, it can be turned a little bit, but if it's turned all the way like that, or you don't want this part down here to really be wiggly. You'd only want this part to be. So that's why we've always just tried to keep things centered and not pulled to the side too much, because then it's probably pulling underneath, and that's hitting her side.
It's just like the way our bodies are made. Like, our bodies are meant to be versatile and, turn and be flexible, but only to a certain extent. And, like, if it goes beyond that extent, then it can cause problems. It could cause tears. It could cause breaks. It could cause all kinds of different things, depending on what body part it is. So it's the same thing with you. You have to think of it in the same way with the trach.
Yeah, the trach is technically now it's not part of her, but it is part of her, so you want to be careful. So then, is that all you wanted to say about that?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I didn't write down on this, and I guess we could talk about it now so I don't forget, but...
Looks like there's going to be a part 3.
No. It goes along with the vent tubing. So when you have the vent, you don't want to ever lift the tubing up over, above the the patient, because if you do that, a lot of times there's condensation from
the water heater,
because it has to be moist, because you have to keep that airway moist. Our bodies keep our airways moist by breathing in through our nose, and it moisturizes it. Obviously drinking a lot of water and all that stuff, but she doesn't breathe through her nose, she breathes through her trach, so there's no humidification unless you have what they call an HME, which is a heat and moisture exchange thing, which I didn't bring to show you yet, but or if she's attached to the vent, it has a water bag, and it's a heated chamber, and it heats up the water, and so she's breathing air that has been moisturized and heated. But when that happens, a lot of times there's condensation in the tubing, and if you move the child around without being conscious of it, if you pull the water, or if you pull the tubing up, the water goes right down and goes into her lungs, and that can be very dangerous. That's basically drowning her.
She can aspirate. She can
pneumonia,
choke.
Yeah. So if that does happen sometimes, but we're very careful, so it doesn't happen a lot. But every so often, if a little bit of water gets down there, we suction her right away, because then it will suction it right back out. So, and if that ever happened, just suction and
right away, because
you don't want to wait.
You don't want to wait, because then it'll, get down into her throat, and she'll end up coughing, and then A lot of the
Your
times,
lungs.
it gets in her lungs, and then if she's coughing enough for a long period of time, then she'll end up vomiting.
That's victory. Not everybody does that, but yeah.
Right. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
yeah. Possibilities that could happen with your child, because it does happen with victory. So, but every child's different. So.
Yeah, and not to scare you, but just we want to give you have you know, because like if we didn't know, then it would happen a lot. But now that we've known, we're very careful, and we're just wanting you to be aware of that as well. All right, so the other thing that I wrote down to make sure we didn't forget would be a very big tip that I actually love, and I've been doing it since we were in the hospital, is to get like a Ziploc bag, and because every day you have to do trach care to
sandwich
clean.
Bag, or what kind of Ziploc bag?
Sandwich Ziploc bag. I forget that not everybody's watching. Some people are listening. So a sandwich bag that's a Ziploc, and every day you have to do trach care. So instead of getting all the supplies every single day, I come up with a week's worth and make like what I call trach kits.
Or our day
and
nurse.
Actually, now that we have a day nurse, we've taught our day nurse how to do it.
She's
and what
the
we
best.
want, and she does them.
Her name is Krista, and we love her.
Yes. So every trach kit comes with.
We're actually gonna do an episode.
He wants to do an episode
sometime later in the future, where we interview her, and it's gonna be phenomenal. So keep your eyes out for that.
So in your trach kit, you want to have basically 4 Q-tips. A lot of times they come 2 and 2, but sometimes it only is 1. So you want to have a wet and a dry, and a wet and a dry, because you're going to do
Each side.
Wet, wipe it off with a wet Q-tip, dry it with a dry Q-tip, and then you're going to do the same thing. And here's two little gauze pads or whatever, and one will be wet, and you're going to wipe the whole neck around, and then you'll take the dry one and dry the whole neck on this side.
It's actually called an IV drain sponge.
That's what we like to use.
Yeah.
Not everybody uses that.
But we call them trach dressings.
Yeah, and then because that one is a 2x2, and we used to use that for right here around this, around the trach. But now she's gotten bigger, so now we use a 4x4 for around the trach.
But we still use these
for wiping,
for trach cares every day. For just wiping, we use a wet one to wipe and a dry one to dry.
Yeah, and probably shouldn't open them, but I'm going to, just for the sake of,
You need 4 of these, 2 on each side, just like the Q-tips. So you need a wet Q-tip, a dry Q-tip, a wet
wipe
gauze,
and a dry one.
and a dry gauze.
Yeah.
For the left and the right side.
Right, and so basically it's like this, and what's most important is you're getting out any type of like fuzzies or like anything weird around the stoma, and you're wiping it away. You don't want to push it towards and go inside the hole, inside the stoma. So you're taking the Q-tip and wiping with the wet one, all of it around there. But then you want to make sure it's dry, so you take a dry one and you dry that whole area. And then the wet wipe is really for all of this area, and so you wipe everything that way.
Yeah, so you basically go from the center
out
of the neck all the way out to the back of the neck.
Yeah.
The middle of the back of the neck on your side, because we each do one side, because while one person is doing all the washing
cleaning
and the wiping and the drying and the cleaning, the other person has to hold it in place, because there's no trach tie to hold it in place on the other side, because you have to take the trach tie off to get underneath the trach and on the neck to clean it.
And if you're not holding it, it will just fall out.
Right.
And that'd be bad.
So while she's cleaning one side, I'm holding the trach in on the other side, and then
we'll switch.
And then she, takes the wet Q-tip to clean it. She takes the dry Q-tip to dry it, and the Q-tips are for actual under the
flanges.
The Q-tips are for cleaning under the phalanges of the trach itself. So you do the wet Q-tip under one side of the phalange, and then you use the dry Q-tip to dry one side of the phalange, and then you use the wet gauze pad to go from the neck, the center of the neck on your side, all the way to the back of the center of the neck on your side, and then use a dry one to dry the same area. And then before I let go of holding the trach, she puts the tie back, a new tie back in, Velcros it together, and then while I'm still holding, she goes above my fingers where I'm holding the trach down. And then when she tells me that she has it, I let go of.
Yeah, it was quite the very difficult to do.
I let go of where I was holding, so now she's holding it, and then I can take my side of the trach ties off and do the same thing that she just did on my side.
Yeah, and then he'll put the tie on, and then we check it, and we're done. So this is also another part in the trach kit. You want to have the dressing, because the dressing really goes right here, so that it covers the hole basically, so that, because a lot of times there might be secretions or spit or something, and that kind of wicks away the moisture so that it's not on her skin and causing problems. So that's all part of
the trach dressing that goes underneath the trach, for the people that are listening,
yes,
is almost cut in a V shape. It actually looks, they're pre-made, so it's actually cut in the shape of a cross. So that cross part that's already pre-cut goes right underneath the middle of the trach, so that you have the ends of each side right underneath the phalanges of the trach and under the trach tie itself.
Yes. So that's part of the trach kit. And then the last piece of the trach kit is our trach tie, which we have to pre-cut for the right size, because everybody's has a different size neck. So you don't want it to be too loose, because then it will be falling her out. It won't be too, if it's too tight, then it's going to be not safe for her skin, and also really hard for her to breathe as well, and uncomfortable. So this is the trach tie, and it goes.
And for those of you that are listening, there's some things that may be a little bit harder to describe what they look like, so you may want to hop onto our YouTube channel,
to see the video,
just so you could get the visual side of everything.
And this is just like a one-time thing. We really are not going to be doing a lot of visual stuff, but I figure some things lend more easily to visual.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to actually do, because this part's usually inside of Victory, so it's kind of hard for you to visualize it. But so like this part goes through the little eyelet.
Hole.
Yeah. Eyelet? Is that it?
Eyelet.
And you pull it through, and then you tape, Velcro it down, and then this goes, or this is already like around her neck.
Yeah.
And then we do it to this side.
So pretend there's
another hole here.
Yeah.
And then so her head's right here.
Yeah.
So there you go. But a lot of times we'll have to make sure it's not too tight. So I have to make sure like it's basically one finger length.
So.
Or width.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So this is what it would look like if you were looking.
Wish we had a doll.
Yeah. If you were looking at Victory and you were looking at her neck, this part is
not there.
Yeah, that part's not there. So that's what it would look like. Like this hole right
where
here
her head is.
would be where her head is.
Her neck.
Her neck, rather.
Her head's up here.
Yeah. So this is her neck. So this is what it looks like.
Yeah. And then we would, like, I would hold here, and then this is when we take it off and start cleaning underneath.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much as far as we can go as explaining it without actually showing. Someday I would like to show it actually on Victory, but just the way to set up the camera and stuff.
We have to figure out a different setup for
it.
And once we do, then we'll definitely not choreograph it, but videotape it for you guys.
Yeah. And so again, all that just to say, make some trach kits up ahead of time so that you're not like every day having to scramble and get it. It'll be already made. You just say, okay, here it is. I'm setting them up. Yeah. Get one Q-tip, get 2 Q-tips wet, keep 2 Q-tips dry, get 2 gauze wet, keep 2 gauze dry, and then go about your
And you wet them with sterile water.
Yeah. And they'll tell you all that
not
when
like
you're
faucet water or like spring water.
Yeah. And they'll tell you all that when
And if you're ever inpatient after the fact, one of the advantages of that, I guess you could say, is they always ask you if you need anything. Always ask for trach supplies. Always, because they have plenty.
Yeah, and they have to throw it away if they bring it into your room. They can't put it back in the storage. They have to throw it away. So you should take everything. So you might as well just take it. Take everything.
And they'll give you everything. Like,
for the most part.
A plethora of things to take home.
And that kind of goes with one of the other things I have written down, is like, make sure that you, when you get your supplies, like, don't just like throw them away. Like, obviously you wouldn't, but if you have like too much, save it. You want to make sure you have like a storehouse of supplies, because there are back orders. Yeah, there are a lot of back orders.
Or not back stock, overstock.
Because there are back
overstock.
orders.
I want to do a video to show that too, because I think that'll be helpful. But
yeah, and you don't want to like over order, because that's like, they always say that you're not supposed to like order when you don't need it, because that's, insurance is paying for it. But if you happen to have a little extra, save it. Okay? We're not saying to order extra, but we're saying if you have extra, save it. And then,
whatever you can get away with ordering extra for, you do it.
Yeah, so you have extra to save, because if you don't have trach ties, then how are you supposed to keep your daughter's trach or your son's trach in? So, and you're gonna have to learn to not fight, but advocate for what the child needs, because sometimes they're gonna say, well, oh, you can use a different, trach tie rather than the Dale trach ties, but no, these ones work for my daughter, and all the other ones scratch her neck or cause her neck to be irritated or something. So we have to fight for Dale.
Rashes,
yeah, so you have to fight for Dale. Again, this is for Victory. Like, Victory likes the Dale trach ties. You may hate them, so advocate for the trach tie that you guys like and you guys need, and that's what you need to get. Yeah. So let's see if there's anything else you wanted to talk about. I can talk about that. Trach groups and stuff like that.
Or whatever you want to talk about.
All right. Well, I guess going along with that, I don't want to be the only one talking.
That's okay. I've said enough too. Don't worry.
I would suggest going on Facebook and joining some trach groups. You don't have to stay in them, but if you want to join a few and find ones that you like, and
depending on where you like. Yeah, depending on where you live, they have like state groups. Like, we're part of the Mass Moms and Dads Trach Baby Group, I think it's what it's called. I can't remember.
I didn't think it was Massachusetts, but
yeah,
they have different ones.
Yeah, they have like Moms and Dads of Trach Babies. They have Mass Moms and Dads of Trach Babies. They have like all kinds of different Facebook groups. You just have to look for the ones that fit fit your child and what you guys are going through and what type of things you guys have going on. There's a Facebook group for everything. You just got to find the right ones.
And we really like that, because obviously if we have questions, we can throw a question up on the post and everyone answers. They've all had experiences as well, just like us. But then also there's so many families that are like, we have so much, like too much syringes or too many trach ties or water bags. And they like, this is free, just pick it up, or it's free for shipping. You pay for shipping and I'll send it to you. And you do have to be careful, because there have been some scams, but you also do want to, find one that you like, find ones that you trust, and establish a relationship, because you might help someone else and they might help you. So.
And these people become like family, because we're all going through the same thing. We're all dealing with the same issues and the same supplies and the same, everyday things that, parents with trach babies go through, trach, children go through. And so, it really takes a village, like they say. And one of the best things you could do is surround yourself with an inner circle that becomes like family to you, and you can find that on Facebook. We have, and I know that you guys can too, because they have Facebook groups for everything. And if you're not sure, again, reach out to us and we'll help you find one. You know, and we'll help you look for one that best fits your needs and the needs of your child too, because like I said, they really become family, and we're all here to help each other. So it becomes a huge resource in this journey.
Yeah. We're coming up on 40 minutes, so we probably should try to wrap it up because I don't want to keep it too long. But very quickly, I would practice ambu bagging your child while they're awake, while they're asleep, all that, because you want to try and go with their breaths. Unless they're not breathing, then you want to do it nice and slow. You don't want to overinflate their lungs. You don't want to do it too fast. So it has to be like I think we counted to 4. I think I remember if I was going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it seems super slow, but like you're going to be panicking, so you have to calm yourself down and count slow as you ambu bag. And then another emergency type thing, you always want to have a spare trach wherever you are. Always bring your spare trach.
They're always going to ask you wherever you go, like
yeah,
even on your appointments, they're going to ask you, oh, do you have a spare trach handy? And usually, like for us, when it comes to Victory, the Boston Children's actually gave us one that we take with us, and it has everything in there. It has a trach that's one size down. It has a trach that's the same size. Yeah. And it has like, emergency safety scissors. It has like all kinds of different things.
Like a go bag. That's what
yeah, like almost like a first aid kit, but for trachs.
Yeah. And it has all the things like, again, like, you guys probably should be a 3-part person because
it might have to be, yeah.
Because there's stuff to talk about with like, sometimes you have to inflate. This is called a cuff. And if you inflate it, there's like a little balloon that pops up right here to make sure that it's to make sure that the air comes out and stays down in our lungs rather than escaping through the hole of the stoma. So in an emergency, if you have the bubble, if you have the balloon there, and oh my goodness, she's not breathing, I have to change the trach, there's a mucus plug, which is another thing to talk about. This is all they have to breathe, this tiny little hole. So if this is plugged by mucus, they can't breathe, and you have to change it out really quickly.
Right away.
And, if there's a air bubble, whatever you call it, balloon there, you can't get it out. So you have to deflate the cuff, make the balloon thingy go down, so then you can just take it out and then put a new one in.
It's not only, they won't be able to breathe, but you won't be able to suction suction them either.
Right. And that's kind of one of our big, that's a test to see if you're like, I don't know if she has a mucus plug or not. You want to try to suction, and if the suction catheter doesn't go through and something's plugging it, and that's like one of the sure signs that you need to change the trach. But they have always said, when in doubt, change it out. So if you don't know and your daughter or son is satting like 20, and there's no reason why, and
low,
you've tried,
heart rate's high,
and you can't get a suction through to suction her out and nothing's happening, change it. And that's why we suggest to always have one ready. Have it out and put in a very, whenever you take it out, don't touch this area, and carefully attach a trach tie to it. And we actually haven't done this because we've never had, but we really should have it ready so that if we would put this into like a Ziploc bag. And so if you had to, you'd take the old one out, it's already there, you put it in, and then you just lift her head up, and then me and Brian probably together would do basically trach care and just put it on. But you want to make sure you have one ready, because if you don't, you're fumbling around, frantic, trying to find a trach, trying to see if you can put this on, trying to all the things.
And like everywhere she is in the house, wherever we take her, like whether she's in the house, wherever she is in the house, in the car, on an appointments, we always make sure that there's an extra trach next to her or around her, close enough to where if she ever needed something like if she ever needed us to do something like that, we could right away. So
Yeah.
you always want to make sure that you have one handy.
And you also, in addition to that, have to have a size down, because if there's ever, for some reason, you can't get this size in, you need a size smaller, because then you most likely can get it back in.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, you want to make sure you get it back in just so that they can breathe.
Right.
But then number two, if you took it out and left it out, even if they could breathe, the stone would close,
yeah.
because it's naturally like he's been saying, your body will naturally heal itself and it will close the hole.
Yeah.
And so
and then you'll have to go through the whole process all over again.
So you always want to make
good.
sure it's in there.
Yeah. And at least if the size smaller is in, it could hold you over until you figure out what the bigger issue is, as far as why the regular size can't fit.
Right. And then they could go from there. And again, I think we may want to just do another one, but I also don't want to not say this, because I do think it's like a matter of life and death. Literally, always, until you know what your child looks like when they're in distress, you should always have the pulse ox on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take it off when they're sleeping. Have the pulse ox on. If you are running into the other room, make sure the pulse ox is on and is loud. Like, you really shouldn't.
It really
leave
took
them
us a long time before we recognized like different parts throughout the day where Victory's okay, or what she looks like when she's okay, or what she doesn't look like when she's not okay, and all this stuff. And it took us a couple years to finally get to the point where we felt comfortable enough to be able to
not have her on
the pulse ox during the day. We always keep it on her at night, no matter what.
Or if she's sick.
Or when she's sleeping. Like if she's sleeping, if it's during the day for a nap, or unexpected, like just a little cat nap during the day, whatever, we always put it on her.
Yeah.
We put it on her at night for bedtime. We put it on her when she's not feeling well. But all the other times, we feel pretty confident to not have her on it. But it really did. It took us like 2 or 3 years almost before we got to that point. So
yeah, and
I wouldn't rush that part.
Right? No, definitely not. And if you think that you're going to be distracted, put it on her. Like, because you don't want to be distracted, like doing the dishes and thinking she's fine. Oh, she's just being quiet, when she's actually has a plug and she can't breathe and she's turning blue, and you have no idea because the pulse ox is not on. So that's like, it is like literally a life and death issue. But also, if you can get night nurses, I really suggest night nursing, because you can't trust that you're going to wake up, number one, when the alarm comes on, but also by the time the alarm is going off, that means she's already desaturated and her oxygen is already low enough to make an alarm. And you kind of want to catch it before even that. And also, I've sadly seen or heard of pulse oxes malfunctioning and not going off. And so you really want to be aware and awake and
sometimes
watching.
They're delayed even.
They are very delayed sometimes too.
You have to be careful of that too.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's what I mean. Like, by the time the alarm goes off, it's already past a point where you don't want to be. So that's why I would say, if you can get night nursing, or if you can somehow switch off, like me and Brian, when we don't have a night nurse, which is totally another topic, we switch out
every 2 hours.
We cannot have no one be watching her, and that's also most likely because of her seizures, but also because of a trach. Like, you don't want to just assume she's fine when she could have a plug or something going on. So
yeah.
But I think that's probably good for now, and then we can...
I think what we're going to do is we'll just make a part 3. We'll go through the list that we went through today, and whatever we didn't cover, we'll touch on slightly in the next one, but then we'll also show you guys what an HME looks like. We'll show you guys...
suctioning.
What the catheter looks like. We'll show you guys what the vent tubing looks like. And a whole bunch of other stuff. So again, for those of you that listen to these, this one and the next one might be a little bit more beneficial to you if you actually go on our Living with Victory YouTube channel to watch them, so you could have a better visual of everything, and that would probably be more helpful to you in that aspect. And so with that said, I think this concludes our Living with Victory podcast, episode 3.
Four.
Episode 4.
I think 4.
Tracheostomy part 2. So we also wanted to just remind you guys that you can go on to livingwithvictory.com. You'll see videos and blogs and pictures and links to the podcast and our YouTube channel. We have a Living with Victory YouTube channel, and we are just fresh, hot off the press, live on Apple Podcast, Living with Victory podcast. We're on Podbean. We are on Spotify. We are on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and
other ones I never even heard before.
Podcast Addict, I think it's called. So
all the places.
And
maybe more soon.
So please, again, like, share, subscribe, follow. We have also our Victory's Victory Facebook page and our Living with Victory Facebook page. And then we also have our own personal Facebook pages too. So there's no excuse to get a hold of us if you need to. Not to get a hold of us if you need to or want to. But more importantly, it's just really for you guys to follow Victory's journey in all of this and just see how she really does and how we really do live with Victory because of Jesus.
Well, it comes all down to that.
Yeah. So we appreciate you guys listening and watching, and we look forward to more of you listening and watching.
See you next time.
See you next time on Living with Victory.
Bye.
Bye, guys. My wife and I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Living with Victory. We really do hope that something in this conversation that you heard stirred your heart, made you laugh, or even just reminded you that you are not alone on this road.
If today hit home, share it with a friend who needs some hope in the middle of their own journey.
And don't forget, you can always find our Living with Victory podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and other live streaming platforms. You can also watch us on our Living with Victory YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for more hope-filled content. Everything is linked at livingwithvictory.com.
Maybe you would like to share how this touched your life, or you have a prayer request or a story you want to share. Just email us at livingwithvictory7@gmail.com.
Until next time, remember, through Christ, we can all live with victory.